I want to get my opinion across on this, and I'm not going to lie, you might not like it. And in fact, if you don't, I encourage you to let me know what you think down in the comments. But what I'm talking about here is Call of Duty, I believe, has lost its identity, but probably not in the way that you are thinking. If you saw the title, if you saw the thumbnail, you are probably thinking the majority of this video is going to be talking about realism. Call of Duty should be a realistic milsim shooter, right? Well, I don't actually think that that is the case whatsoever. In Call of Duty 4, all the way up until Call of Duty Ghost, that might have been the case. However, there are some very big elements that are really, really unrealistic. Respawning or even zombies are far from realism. You go into a game, you get taken out by a soldier, and just like that, in a couple seconds, you're back up on your feet once again in battle. And then Call of Duty Ghost comes along and they add in other elements like Michael Myers or the Predator being a playable character. And don't get me wrong, that was 10 years ago. That was nothing new. This has been happening for years and years. Then came along the advanced movement games, implementing laser weapons, weapons that shot saw blades, nail guns, and much, much more on top of that, not even mentioning the crazy movement mechanics like boost jumping, wall running. And the example that I want to use here is something that I actually really enjoyed from the game Black Ops 3. They implemented a map called Micro. This map essentially shrunk you down to the size of an ant and you played on top of a picnic table. Not only did I really like this map, I liked the aesthetics of it, I enjoyed playing on it, and let's be honest, this map was so far from realistic. But still, at that point, I still felt like Call of Duty had its identity. And hey, you may disagree with that altogether. You may say that when that stuff started being a part of the game, that is when Call of Duty was lost. Just doesn't feel that way to me. However, it does now, and the question is why? Now, some of you at this point are going to say, well, it's because they took it too far. All of a sudden you have these anime, crazy bright characters running around, twerking on dead bodies, and that is why it doesn't feel like Call of Duty. Now, I'm going to be honest, I don't buy these bundles. It's not really something I partake in, but to me, it's not about what I'm watching or what's going on or how bright or vibrant the map is, whether or not I'm ant-sized and on a picnic table or in the middle of a battlefield. To me, it is more comes down to the gameplay. And this is where I think the identity has changed. Call of Duty no longer focuses on the gameplay, but rather the grind. And that's not always necessarily a bad thing, but what I believe is the way that they have done it has hindered the experience of playing a Call of Duty game. Let me explain. If we go all the way back to Call of Duty 4, it was simple. You leveled up a character, and as you did, you unlocked weapons. With those weapons, if you used them to complete challenges, you got attachments, and then when you hit max level, you could reset your soldier, go all the way back to level 1, and do it all again, pushing towards that maximum prestige and maximum level. And on top of this, a new Call of Duty game was released every single year with that goal in mind, being the top tier soldier with everything unlocked by the end of that given year, with a new game to look forward to at the very end. To me, this method was really interesting because it took that super solid first-person shooter feel and implemented these RPG elements, leveling, unlocking different weapons at different levels, challenges, things like that. And then they Call of Duty-ized that RPG elements with their gameplay. Even things like challenges for getting gold camos were there all the way back in the day. We then saw this method adapted and changed year after year after year, over and over again, with minor changes. For example, in Black Ops 1, we had Call of Duty points. You could use these points to unlock your various different weapons or go into wager matches and kind of gamble them to earn more and more and unlock more things. But still, at the end of that year, you were going into the next game. Again, trying to level up your soldier and unlock everything. Call of Duty Ghost had you use different operators every single time you prestiged, and even other games changed the total maximum number of prestiges or even the top tier levels in those games. Some games had 20 prestiges, some had the maximum prestige with a level cap of 1,000. That would always change, but as a whole, that grind stayed the same. The goal was be the best soldier by the end of the year going into the next game. Now, where things started to change in my eyes was Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. They also had all of these RPG elements, but the other one that they added was supply drops. Now, this added two things into the game. First off, once again, another RPG element, but the thing that was different is this RPG element was RNG. It was now up to the hands of the COD gods as to whether you would roll one of these supply drops and get the weapon you were waiting for, which did have different stats, or would you just get another type of boots? Now, if I'm being honest with you, I didn't mind this method. I thought it added more replayability, RNG. You got excited when you got the things that you wanted. Where that changed, however, is when you could buy supply drops. Of course, when you could do this, they would put more items in there, and then all of a sudden people were paying literally thousands of dollars to just roll these and try to get the weapons. As soon as the gameplay element of it was taken out and you could just buy it, it was something else altogether. But I'm gonna be honest, even at this point, the grind to me, that year after year content cycle, still felt like Call of Duty. I think supply drops took a little bit away from that, but as a whole, it still felt like the Call of Duty that I played all the way back in Call of Duty 4. And I think, again, the reason for that is that you worked throughout the year to unlock everything, and even though it was in supply drops, the way you'd unlock things, you were still working towards having the top tier soldier with everything unlocked by the end of that year. Now, this remained tried and true through many, many Call of Duty games. Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4, Infinite Warfare, and then we hit the tipping point, which was Modern Warfare 2019. This is when everything changed. Now, there were many changes that happened this year. The most overlooked of all was that DLC was removed. Everyone now had access whenever they put in a new weapon or a new map or anything along those lines. And now, seasons were implemented. And with each season, we would get big drops, new additions to the game. And now, Call of Duty wasn't the same. It was now a game as a service. Now, if you don't know what a game as a service is, let me very simply explain it to you. If a game has seasons, it is probably a game as a service. Now, these games, generally speaking, are long supported games, most often with battle passes that have free updates with large changes to gameplay, new content, and once again, a battle pass each and every season. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think that this model is necessarily wrong for Call of Duty. I don't think Call of Duty shouldn't be a games as a service, but the current way that they're doing it is making it not feel like Call of Duty altogether. And let me explain why. First of all, I think the biggest thing, the slow rollout of a higher level cap just doesn't make any sense in Call of Duty. Every single season, they up the maximum level that your soldier can hit, as opposed to the previous games where that max level would just be there right at the launch of the game. It's as if you don't get the full leveling experience right when the game comes out. You have to wait throughout the year to actually do that. And I think if we look deeper at that, essentially with newer Call of Duty games, the game that you purchase at the beginning of the year is very, very different and has changed by the end of that given year. And that level cap is only one very, very small example of that. So what you pay for at the beginning of the year isn't necessarily what you get. Now, the other thing is the way that weapons work. Weapons before, you would unlock a weapon at a given level, then you'd use it and complete some challenges, and you'd get a couple of different attachments, or you'd level up that weapon and get a bunch of different attachments and you could use it. But the way that it works now is there's a million attachments with a million different camos and tons to unlock. Don't get me wrong, I like these changes, but with this, there is a very, very big problem. Most of these systems just don't have a ton of emphasis on actual gameplay. They are focused solely on that grinding aspect. They want you to get in there and grind almost like they're treating it as a job. In previous Call of Duty games, you would pick one attachment and you'd try to pick that attachment in what you think would make you do best in the next game. Now you have to use the right combination of 5 different attachments, and those attachments might change, but based off of who you were playing, what map you were playing on, or what game mode you were playing. But then once you get in the game, you're not focused on actually doing well and beating the other team. You're focused on getting long shots or headshots or a million other things, which again is not focused on actually playing the game as intended. It's making you play the game for specific challenges. Again, being completely about the grind. Now again, I like a lot of these things. So if I'm saying I like these things, why am I saying that it has changed the identity of Call of Duty? What the heck am I talking about here? It's simple. It comes down to this one thing alone. If we go and have a look at these other live service games, let's look at the big ones: Destiny, Rainbow Six Siege, Fortnite, and many, many more. When it comes to these games, they have one thing in common, and one thing alone. They might be different. They might be games that are driving games, and some are shooters, and some are MOBAs. But the one thing that's similar with all of these games is that none of them come out every single year. In fact, it's not just every single year. Most of these have just one game, and that game is updated for 10 plus years, having many seasons and many of these live service elements put in. But with Call of Duty, there's a new game coming next year. Essentially, what I'm saying is Call of Duty is trying to have it cake and eat it too. It's trying to use this yearly release model of a new game every single year where you level up your soldier, you get to maximum level, you unlock everything, and there's new things added every season, but also there's a new game coming next year. You got to buy that, and if you want all the cosmetics and everything to unlock, you got to buy those too. Now, why are they doing this? It's simple. Money. I think at this point it's clear to say that Call of Duty is making more money off of the microtransactions and live service components than they are off of that yearly release. Don't get me wrong, they're still making like $1 billion every year off the release of the game. It's just more money is coming in off the microtransactions. And because of this, I truly believe that there is a big disconnect in the player base. Live service games are all about grinding, trying to unlock everything that there is before the next big drop, or the next season, or the next battle pass. But why does any of that matter when the next year, it's just a new Call of Duty game? That not only have to grind for everything all over again, you also have to pay for all over again. And they did try to fix this year by adding in all of the Modern Warfare 2 things into Modern Warfare 3, but as we clearly saw, people didn't like that either. And I think the reason for that is this identity crisis. Call of Duty has for years been this thing that refreshes and is new every single year. But when you make it a live service, everyone that likes that live service model isn't going to like that everything resets every year. And everyone that likes that yearly reset isn't going to like the live service models. So these two counteracting ideas are completely taking over each other, and that is where the identity crisis comes in. So we could argue all you want about should anime, superheroes, hip-hop skins be in the game, whether or not it ruins immersion. But I think the identity issue comes down to how we play, how we interact with the game. And when it comes to interacting with Call of Duty, we have this yearly release with a live service model, and it is the only game that does that. And the question is do you stick with one, or do you try to find this balance between the two, which I think is what they tried to do with Modern Warfare 3. But as a whole, I think that experience is completely disconnected. The old school Call of Duty players want that yearly reset, and the new school Call of Duty players want this live service program, which oftentimes these live service games are either very cheap or free to play because they rely on those microtransactions. And Call of Duty is in this in-between ground where they're trying to have their cake, which would be buying the game every year and a yearly reset, and eat it too with a live service model. But the problem is that live service model only lasts 1 year. And normally when it comes down to something like this, I try to put my ideas with a solution out there, but to this one, I don't have one. I just want to hear what you guys have to say about it. So I know this was kind of ranty, a very different type of video than I normally do, but I want to hear what you guys have to say about this. So let me know what you think down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe. If you like these type of videos, let me know. Give me your comments, all of that jazz. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, peace.
We are reaching for the stars.